rise up from the grave. Hello, and welcome to the live stream for DGST 395 Applied Digital Studies. I'm going to be telling some internet ghost stories today. So welcome to my creepy ghost story place. I can't think of what I was going to call this. So if you're watching the stream, I am live from the classroom as usual. I'm going to pull down that background noise a little bit. I added a creepy background sound effect just to be creepy. And the scene that you were just seeing, by the way, this location is a live camera on a theater at Furman University that is supposed to be haunted. And so this is a live webcam feed of that theater. And the idea is if you see a ghost on it, you should take a screenshot and tell someone. So if you happened to see something unusual while I was getting started here, then hopefully you got a screenshot of it. So today I'm going to switch over to my normal thing and then tell you some stories about some things that are kind of spooky on the internet. And this will be a bit of history in the sense that I'm going to go back in time a bit. As you see here, this is quite a ways back in time. And I'm going to tell you some of these stories. In some cases, I'll tell you about them instead of telling you the whole thing, but I think these are interesting things. The things I'm going to show you are sometimes called creepypastas, as a kind of creepy version of copypasta. So these are, in some cases, stories that have been copied and pasted on different forums over the years. In some cases, they've just existed on their own, like this one. This is Ted's Caving Story, and this is a webpage that thankfully still exists. It's still alive. It's on Angel Fire. You know, we talked a bit about GeoCities. Angel Fire was one of their big competitors, and it's still running. So we can access Ted's Caving Story from 2001. So one of the things that I think is a theme that you should notice in these things that I'm talking about here is a sense of plausibility, or a sense of maybe this is true. And that sense, I think, comes from, in some cases, good writing or good editing. But also, these are things that come from an earlier era in the internet where we, as users of the internet, we're still trying to figure out how much truth to attribute to what we saw on the internet. And so in some cases, these works exploit that and help us believe things that we might otherwise be a bit more critical of. Sorry, I'm moving this around a bit so I can make sure to show you all of it. Let me just resize this. I'm trying to resize this a tiny bit. There we go. To make sure I can fit it all in here. So I'm going to read you the first few pages of Ted's Caving Story, but you can find it yourself and read it online if you'd like. You should probably have ad blocker running because as an artifact of 90s web design, there are a ton of ads, but they're all being blocked by my ad blocker right now. Ted's Caving Story, updated May 19th, 2001. Click here. Due to the overwhelming number of requests I have received to tell about my discoveries and bizarre experiences, in a cave not far from my home, I have created this webpage. I will outline the events that happened to me during the past few months, beginning with my journey into a familiar cave in December 2000 and ending, well, it hasn't actually ended yet. I will use my caving journal as the text to tell about my recent experience. I will give them to you as I experienced them in chronological order. I have included photographs that were taken during my many trips into the cave. I have also created a few illustrations to help the reader get a better idea of what things looked like in the cave. All of the photos were taken by me, or one of the few people I went into the cave with. I want to point out a few things before I tell about the events. Most of the pictures were taken with a Kodak disposable type camera. I took a better camera into the cave on one or two of the trips. Pictures on this site are all original photos and have not been messed with or enhanced, other than where noted. As a rule, I get my pictures put onto disk at the time of developing so I don't have to scan them later. This ensures the best digital quality. Number two, I will not reveal the names of the other people involved in this experience. If you know me well enough, you probably know them already. Number three, I will not reveal the location of the cave to anyone for any reason, so please don't ask. I refuse to be held accountable for anyone's life but my own. I will refer to the cave as Mystery Cave. That is not its real name. If you think these events sound far-fetched, I agree. I would come to the same conclusion had I not experienced them. I will try to finish the site as soon as possible. Check the date on the main page to see when I've made updates. To protect myself from people who might want to copy this site, I include the following. All text is copyright 2001 TED. Page 1, the discovery. I will divide the text into two colors for the sake of clarity. The gray text is taken directly from my caving journal. The italicized blue text is my comments as I reflect on the experience. I will do my best to convey the thoughts and feelings I had during the entire event. I will not use the actual names of the other individuals involved. B and I decided to get in one more caving trip before the new year, so we set our sights on Mystery Cave. Not a spectacular cave, but since neither of us had been caving in a while, it would be nice to go into any cave. There was a bit of excitement to this trip. There was a small passage in the lower portion of the cave that I wanted to check out to see if it was possible to get past it. It had a small opening, but lots of air blowing out of it. Even though that is way too small to climb through, I had never even checked to see what was inside the passage. We got our gear loaded up and hit the road by 3 p.m. We got to the cave in great time since B likes to drive fast. We anchored from the usual tree and began to rappel into the cave. I went down first and got my gear together while B came down. I will refer to B many times. We've been caving together for many months now. He was injured in a caving accident a few years ago and was told he would never walk again. Through hard work and perseverance, he not only walks but can get around very well in caves. The trickier parts of a cave might slow him down a bit, but he can make it. He patiently works through an obstacle until he gets past it. Here's a photo of the original opening with his glove stuck in for reference. Currently, it's about the size of my fist. Once we get past the opening, we would have a tight crawl back to where it opened up. It would take some work, but we thought we could do it. We sat down for a few minutes to rest and contemplate our plan of attack. While we sat there in the darkness, we could hear the wind howling from the other side of the passage. It was a low, eerie noise. We could also hear a low rumble from time to time. No big deal, though. The cave is in the vicinity of a highway that has heavy trucks drive on it. We figured the rumble was the effect of the trucks resonating through the rocks. We determined that our best plan would be to haul a cordless drill into the cave to drill into the rock. Then we would take a bullpen and a small sledgehammer and break up the rock. It seemed pretty straightforward. We would widen the hole big enough to squeeze in and see what was on the other side. The efforts to haul all of the equipment down to the hole would be a pain, but we hoped it would be worth it. I named the passage Floyd's Tomb after Floyd Collins. It seemed to look like the tight spot where Floyd spent his last miserable days on Earth. Okay, so this is a rough drawing of how the passage originally looked. And yes, it's not very accurate, but you get a sense of what we're talking about here. All right, naming it after Floyd Collins, who's a famous caver who got stuck in a cave. Well, the story was famous. He got stuck in a cave, and they were unable to rescue him, and so he died in the cave. It's a real story. Okay, work begins. And I'm obviously kind of skipping a bit as we go through it. So we could tell that we had done some work in the cave, but it was not that much. So they go back down with their tools. They try to work on it for a while. For the first time since we got in the cave, we sat back, both of us, to take a break. It was nice to check out the results of our hard work. Then we noticed the howling again. It seemed to be a little louder than the last time we were there. We just figured the wind was blowing a little stronger outside. What we could not figure out was the rumbling. It too seemed to be louder and more frequent. This time we could not attribute the noise to trucks. The road that the trucks drove on was not very busy to begin with. At that time of night it should be dead. Yet the rumbling continued. It seemed to be coming from deep within the passage. B said he would ask some veteran cavers what could be causing the noise. And as this goes on, so here's the opening as it appears after this trip, so a little bigger. And this is kind of a sidebar about how some caving terminology and how it works, and some commentary on how dark it is and how cavers, this idea of a hole, which seems unusual, like why would you be interested in this hole? But this is kind of like a jackpot for a caver because it looks like there's something to crawl into and something to go, something there to discover. They might be the first people ever to get there because of how far into the cave it is, how hard it is to get into, and that excitement of discovering is something that cavers are drawn to. Okay, so I'm not going to read the whole thing. I kind of leave it to you to discover on your own, but their batteries, their power tools stop working after a while. Neither of them are able to sleep. They start becoming, even after they leave the cave, they both become obsessed with the cave and sort of are giving up other obligations in their lives to continue drilling this hole. Then, of course, they start hearing noises. And this is a picture. This is after they get into the passage, and you can see how tight it is as a squeeze there. And it takes a fair amount of time. It's basically, as they describe it, squeeze it like sucking, blowing out air so that their chest will be small enough to kind of wiggle their way in. So It's incredibly small. But they increasingly start to feel that they aren't alone down there, and like this is the big page, so I'm not going to read through all of it. But increasingly they start to feel that there is something waiting for them on the other side of this hole. The end of this narrative is, I don't want to spoil it in case you want to read it. It's actually, I think, very good at building a sense of creeping dread, and then it kind of gets worse. I will just say it ends inconclusively. They see this symbol carved on a rock once they get into the room on the other end of the hole, and so they understand that they are not the first people there, but whom or what also may be there is unknown. So it's a very creepy story. I think it's very good. And then it eventually, as I said, ends inconclusively. So I will leave it there, and I'll let you discover this on your own. Okay, so here's another one. This is actually a bit more well known. I mean, its origins are explainable. So this is something called the Dionea House. It purports to be a series of emails, and I'll just read a few to give you a sense of it. But what's interesting about it, I think, is that it's printed as emails. Like this is the series of emails from Mark Condrey and a couple back and forth with a few people as they discuss and try to investigate something unusual about a particular house. And this was written by someone who, Eric Heiserer, who I think sold this as a movie treatment, or sold us a movie script based on this story, and has since gone on to do some pretty well-known movies. I can't remember which ones, but he's a screenwriter now. So this is a fiction writer doing this on purpose, but he's using the trappings, the formatting, the idea of email. So Eric, hey man, it's Mark from Houston. The Saturday Night Gang feels like a long time ago, doesn't it? I'll skip down a bit. Do you know what happened? Did you hear about it already? Let me know if you have some time to talk. I'm going to see if I can track down Travis and Dave. A quick search. Actually, no, wait, let me back up a bit. They're talking about someone called Travis, and they say, you remember Drew? Travis would pick him up most of the time, messy hair, sort of the fanboy type. I didn't remember his last name until I got this thing, and now it's really disturbing me. Do you know what happened? Did you hear about it already? So a great teaser there, right? And then when this was first published, he would only publish 2 or 3 at a time. And so I remember following it and like refreshing it to see if there were any new emails released from this archive to see if there was something new. What we see from the, I guess, narrator is we see his messages only in quotes from Mark. So Eric is the person putting this archive together, and we see what he's included here. So yeah, basically, I'm not going to go through it all, but you can kind of see the format. It's essentially a house that, kind of like the cave, different people in different time periods become obsessed with and are mysteriously drawn to a certain part of this house. And then they, through whatever psychosis they develop with that, they lead other people to be drawn to the house. I'll go ahead and spoil the ending, or give you, it is implied that the name of this house kind of gives it away if you Google it, right? So Dionea is kind of an unusual name. It sounds sort of like Diana maybe. It's also the genus name for a Venus flytrap. So spoiler alert, the house is eating people. So that's what's happening there. It's drawing them to it like a Venus flytrap draws flies with a sickly sweet kind of scent, and then it eats them. So that's implied that that's what's happening in the Dionea house. So there you go. This one is a much more recent one. This is a story called Dear David. And this one is actually, it's 2017, so much more recent, but I included it in this group of things because I think it's kind of a throwback. It's almost a nostalgic kind of, like the way it's structured, the way the evidence here is presented has a lot in common with these earlier creepypastas. And so I felt that like it had a sort of retro feel. These were all posted on Twitter. The author's name is Adam Ellis. He's a webcomic creator and has a decent following already. And he started noticing some unusual things in his apartment and thought he should document it. And so this is a series of Twitter threads. This is a website called Wakelet that lets you put a bunch of tweets together in order, and someone has done this for his tweets. So we can read them in order. I'll go through a little bit of this, and you'll see kind of what's going on, I think. So my apartment is currently being haunted by the ghost of a dead child, and he's trying to kill me. Thread. He started appearing in my dreams, but I think he's crossed over into the real world now. The first time I saw him, I was experiencing sleep paralysis and saw a child sitting in the green rocking chair at the foot of my bed. He had a huge misshapen head that was dented on one side. I did my best to draw it. And there he is. Sleep paralysis, by the way, is the feeling whenever you are awake but you can't move. Like you're in your bed and you're awake but your body is paralyzed, and it's a real thing that happens. I've had it. It's really one of the worst things I've ever experienced. Have any of you had that, or do you know what I'm talking about? Oh, wow. Oh, I bet. Yeah. Yeah, reenacting it would be terrible. Yeah, it's, yeah. In my case, I was kind of sleeping on my face, sort of, and so what happens is basically your mind hallucinates an explanation for why you can't move. Like you can't move because your body's in shutdown mode, because when you experience REM sleep, your body doesn't respond to the images that you see in your dream, because otherwise you'd be running and fighting all night. And so that's a thing of how our brains work. But sometimes that gets mismatched and you wake up even though your body is still in REM mode, and so your mind creates an explanation. And so usually that's something sitting on you, or that was my experience anyway, was that something was like pinning me to my bed, and it was pretty freaky. So anyway, some people experience it very often. I just have had that, had one or two instances in my life. Often people will imagine that there's someone leaning over the bed or standing in the corner. It's a pretty scary experience. So I couldn't move because I was paralyzed. I have sleep paralysis fairly often. It sucks. Right before he reached my bed, I woke up screaming. I had another dream a few nights later where I was in a library and a girl came up to me and said, "You've seen Dear David, haven't you?" I was like, "Who?" And she said, "Dear David, you saw him." She continued, "He's dead. He only appears at midnight, and you can ask him 2 questions if you said Dear David first." Then she added, "But never try to ask him a 3rd question or he'll kill you." I was very shaken. Having 2 dreams about the same thing is pretty weird. Anyway, a couple weeks passed without incident. Then David came back in another dream. Same situation. I was in bed, and he was sitting in the rocking chair near the window staring at me. In the dream, I say, "Dear David, how did you die?" He mumbles, "An accident in the store." I say, "Dear David, what happened in the store?" He groans, "A shelf was pushed on my head." I'm frozen with fear. I ask, "Who pushed the shelf?" David doesn't answer. I realize I've asked a 3rd question, which I'm not supposed to do. At that point, I wake up absolutely terrified. The next couple of days, I Google deaths in the city, but can't find anything about a kid named David dying in a store. I even tried different names, Daniel, Dylan, Devin, nothing. A few weeks go by without incidents. Sort of randomly, the apartment above mine is vacated, and I have the opportunity to move into it. It's a larger apartment, so I'm thrilled. Another month or 2 goes by, and I sort of forget about Dear David. I think he lost track of me because I moved upstairs. But lately, something strange is happening. For the past 4 nights, my cats gather at the front door at exactly midnight and just stare at it, almost like something is on the other side. Last night I got a weird feeling and looked out the peephole, and I'm dead certain I saw some movement on the other side. When I opened the door and turned on the hall light, nothing was there, but my cats seemed unnerved, bushy tails, etc. And that's where I am right now. Dear David found me, I think. I don't know what to do. I'll keep you updated. So while this was going on, he would also just do his normal promotional new comic posted and normal kind of Twitter stuff. And so these threads would be interspersed in there, and people would ask him questions or give him suggestions, and he would try them out and interact with them. He never once said, "This is a work of fiction that I'm working on." He never said, "This is a thing that I'm making up." He was very committed to the truth of this. Update: for the 6th night in a row, my cat has walked over to the door promptly at midnight and stared at it. What is going on? I don't know if the audio is actually set up right. There it is. Or will this be too loud? Too loud, sorry. I don't think the audio is coming through on the stream. But the cat is meowing. That's all that's happening in this one. Interesting. The video seems to cut out on OBS. Well, anyway, the cat is just meowing at the door. Nothing too fancy going on. So I took a photo through the peephole because I'm too scared to open the door. I feel like I saw something. I couldn't tell, so I mustered the courage to open the door. Nothing was out there, but I took another photo. Look at this. And these are of course, still live on Twitter, so we can look at them here. Is it just me, or is there something in the first photo right where the banister meets the shelves, hiding on the stairs? What do you think? Can you see anything? It's a stretch. Right? Here's what it normally looks like. Here, just through the peephole. Maybe something there. I wasn't sure if it was a smudge or something, so I took a second photo from inside. There was something out there. So this is the same, oops, this one. Two different shots through the peephole at different times. The one on the left is where he thinks there's something there. The one on the right is a normal shot. What do you think? Could there be something here? A lot of these photos like this usually have a big red circle over what they think is the ghost, but this one just lets us decide, which I appreciate. I did bolt the lock again and got in bed because I don't know what else to do. I can still hear my cat meowing at the door. I am pretty scared. Look at that. This is just a picture of a cat in the dark, which is, spooky automatically, but I think that was pretty funny. I'm heading to bed, but the cats are back at the door. They only do this in the middle of the night. It's routine now. And here we go, just minutes before midnight. I don't know. Cat's meowing at the door. They're both there now. I am not a cat person. I don't have cats. Do any of you have cats or know cats well? They do weird stuff like this all the time, right? No?
No, I was when I get scared, I bring my cat in my room with me. So
Oh, okay.
it would, I don't know, if my parents came to the door, the cat would go to the door. And
Okay.
sit there.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it's kind of the same. My cat would not just, unless they wanted to go out,
Mm-hmm.
cats would not really be doing that, especially at the same time every night.
Right, yeah. And they seem to be kind of looking up, they're expecting someone to open the door, I think. They look like they're there waiting. I don't know, pretty spooky.
Especially cats. Cats don't really care.
Right, yeah.
They kind of just do their own thing. So the fact that those cats don't look like they're, kittens.
Mm-hmm.
They look like they're older. So the fact that every night at the
Same time.
To do that.
yeah, they weren't trained to do that. So
Yeah, I don't know.
sometimes they're like, hello, this time.
They seem like something's going on, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know if the audio is going to come through, so I'm not going to play these, but these are, he left his memo app on his phone open overnight and recorded some unusual sounds. It sounds like electric static and then a snapping sound, but that's it. Pretty subtle. This one he says, getting the F out of my haunted apartment for the weekend. Peace. And this one, someone replied and he says, I have no explanation for this. I think someone, the tweet that he's quoting was deleted, so I can't see it, but I think someone saw something in the background here and highlighted it, but I've looked at it and I don't see anything unusual. There are certainly opportunities in this image for something to be peeking out of that door back there, for example. Ghosts often show up in doors and windows because, psychologically, these are things we go through, and so it's, I think, easy to imagine something spiritual, supernatural being on the other side of a window or a door. And also we see a reflection often, and that can startle us. So I think that's a window or a door is a common place for people to think they see a ghost. So that might be what's happening there, although I've looked at it and I don't actually see anything myself. But all right, so a weird thing just happened. Take it with a grain of salt. I bought a Polaroid camera this weekend because they're fun and dorky. I decided to take a few photos around my apartment. And here we go. Polaroids are stupid and fun and inherently sort of creepy. I didn't expect to find anything, and for the most part, I didn't. So one of the themes I mentioned is the internet and the way that we learn to trust things that we see on the internet, and we do. We talk a bit about fake news and so on, but we ultimately take people at their word in a lot of cases, especially someone like a blue check on Twitter. So that's one of the themes that I think ties together all these stories. The other one is media, right? So think about how when people suddenly had relatively easy access to film, like Polaroid type film or 8mm film in the 1950s and 60s, suddenly people were seeing and recording UFOs and Bigfoots. This is something that happened because people had the technology to do it. And technology is a kind of spooky thing. This idea that you take a picture of somebody and then that's with you forever is kind of weird. And it's normal to us, we do it all the time, but it's a strange kind of thing. And Polaroids especially have this kind of spooky way of like gradually coming into clarity to see what you've got there. And they also look kind of old and grungy. I mean, even the newer ones like this. So I agree with them. I think Polaroids are inherently sort of creepy. So I think it's no coincidence that he's doing this, right? So he's taking some pictures around his apartment. Looks creepy. And no big deal, but normally creepy, until he takes a picture of the hallway. And he takes a picture of what's out in the hallway, and the Polaroid develops completely black. I even ripped open and destroyed a fresh pack to see if it was an undeveloped Polaroid. And these packs are like $15. Like, I would not have done that. I don't remember. They're expensive. We bought my daughter a camera like this, and I was like, the camera wasn't that expensive, but the film is. It's like crazy. Anyway, so the photo on the left is me covering the lens with my finger. The one on the right is my fully lit hallway taken just after midnight. So it's the same time, just after midnight every time. Then he does a video where he shows himself doing this process and developing this film of what he took in the hallway.
Did he not try to like get the history of the building?
Oh, I don't know.
Like, did he not like say, "Oh, this is kind of whack. Maybe I should see if there's any murders or anything"?
Well, this goes on for a pretty long time, so I think he does eventually. He does do some of that kind of thing.
I don't know. After the Polaroid thing, I would definitely been like, it's time.
Yeah, it's a pretty big difference here. Like this is left taking a picture with his phone, and this is the same time of day taking a picture with his Polaroid, and that's what he gets, right? Okay, so this whole thread is really convoluted. I'm not sorry if it's hard to follow. I just thought this was all weird and wanted to share. So the next day, folks have been urging me to get some sage, so I did. He burned some sage, definitely staging the hell out of this rocking chair. Spoiler alert, it doesn't work. So he'll go silent on this for a couple days at a time, then he'll come back. And when he came back this time, he said sage did not work. So he has several dreams about David. This one is, the cats are still doing the weird thing. I'm kind of skimming a little bit. He keeps picking up the staticky sounds. He feels the house shaking sometimes. There's a thunderstorm warning, but it doesn't actually manifest into a thunderstorm. He has a dream that David is dragging him by the arm through a warehouse, and he wakes up with bruises on his arm. Then he...
It could actually not be a ghost.
Yeah?
Because of what like is happening, especially how it's more like a dark entity. So if anything,
Yeah.
could be like so ghosts at one point were humans, right?
Yeah.
Well, it could be literally a dark entity that was never human or a demon or some sort.
Mm-hmm.
That and a lot of those like to manifest themselves into children because if you think of children, you don't think you think of innocence pretty much.
Yeah.
And so
Well.
it could literally be like an entity or something trying to like get into him.
Yeah. I think that's a good theory. I don't know if on the stream you didn't hear, but Siobhan was pointing out that this could be a dark energy, like not necessarily a human, a ghost of a dead human, but a dark energy taking the form of a child. I gotta say, like, creepy children that's a trope you see a lot. Like you see that ghost girl kind of image a lot in movies. So I think that the idea that a child is inherently innocent is certainly not true in a horror movie. like you see a child standing in the hallway in a horror movie, that's usually a bad thing. But anyway, so there is a warehouse next door. It's mysteriously empty one day, and there's just this chair in it. There's a lot here, so I'm not going to go through it all kind of step by step. He starts getting unknown callers on his phone. He finally answers, and after a long silence, a small voice whispers hello, and then he hangs up. Let's see. There is some more video down here. He gets a nanny cam so he can keep it on his cats when he's at work, or wherever he goes during the day. And so it's recording, but it only triggers whenever there's motion. Let's see, is this the motion? Yeah. So, watch the chair. Oh, it's not, it's paused. Okay, hold on. Yeah, there goes the chair. Very spooky. All All right, so that's all it does. It doesn't do anything else after that. And then, yeah, he shows it, in the way that Twitter, does things, it's kind of confusing. So here's another one. He got another emotion alert later. Yeah, look above the bookshelf. There it goes. Yeah, there's a thing on the wall, it falls off the wall. It's, as he explains, it's a turtle shell. This is it. Okay, so I think what I'll do, maybe I'll just, here's another one with the cat. This is pretty good. The cat is, so after a few minutes, Maxwell freaks out and jumps over something invisible. Yeah, so let's watch Max here. Max is the one, the white and black one. So he's kind of like freaking out. Or just kind of looking around nervously, as cats sometimes do. Then he freaks out and jumps over something. He's like, what was that? And he's like, what? And then he looks up here on the couch. And that's it. Yeah, well, I don't know. Yeah. You get several pictures of Maxwell doing this. You see, this one creeped me out. Look at Max on the right on the couch there, just standing up on his hind legs, just like staring. I love that. Yeah, and then he, let's see. Yeah, he's like swatting at something. Yeah, I think so. I think it's a bug, but But like, you notice how he says, I suppose there's a chance it was a fly, but I honestly never get flies, so that seems unlikely. So you see how he keeps kind of building the doubt and like giving us ways to discount reasonable explanations, right? So we're building this as a story. A bunch more nightmares. I think I'll just link to this so you can kind of get to the end of it. It gets better. It gets scarier. I will say that. I liked it a lot. So I will just I'll share all these links in Discord later, but I'll put it in for now. Put this one in for now. Here's the Dear David thread if you want to read the rest. He eventually gets a web camera and records it in his bedroom at night when he's there sleeping, and he captures some pretty unusual things in his bedroom with him at night. So I'll just leave it at that. It's very spooky. I will say, just as a disclaimer, ultimately, I am convinced that this is a work of fiction, that this is a skilled digital content creator who is trying a different kind of storytelling than he usually does. And I think he's done an excellent job of creating a story and also creating plausible evidence for that story that is generally spooky and creepy. Like, it really kind of freaks me out a little bit. Not in any way that like convinces me to be concerned about Dear David coming to visit me or anything, but just that it's a good scare. Like, I think it really works. Okay, so a few more. So this one's another kind of throwback, the Blair Witch Project. Are you familiar with the Blair Witch Project? Have you seen the movie? It's not far from here. It's this. I got the Wikipedia page up. It's Burkittsville, which is up in Maryland. So it's not far. It's a hour drive or so. It is, yeah, and if you watch the movie, I will say, like, if you watch the movie, the woods, like the way that the woods look in terms of the type of trees and plants and the landscape, it does look a lot like the woods around Fredericksburg. Like if you want, like Pratt Park or anywhere around here where you go off in the woods, it's a very similar kind of foliage. So it definitely looks familiar when you watch the movie. If you watch the movie, it's a good movie. I think it's held up surprisingly well, partly because one of the premises of the movie is that it was a bad movie. Like it was not meant to be like a highly produced, high quality movie. The premise of it is that this was footage found as the last remaining evidence of these people's lives. And so if you buy into that premise, then it's an excellent movie. You all probably don't know this or remember this, but when this movie came out, this is their website. I was pleased to discover this website is still running. This was their original website. You can learn about the history of the Blair Witch. Ellie Kedward is, I think, her name. We got all this backstories, this documentation, creepy photos that people have taken over the years. You can learn about Burkittsville, Maryland, which is a real place, and you can see some pictures of what Burkittsville looks like. I pulled it up on Google Street View earlier, and it looks the same pretty much now. You can learn about the filmmakers. These are actually the characters in the movie, but the premise is that these are the filmmakers, and they literally did actually film a lot of it themselves. But yeah, you learn about them here and kind of see what this is doing. The premise is that this is their senior, or Heather's senior project as a film student at Montgomery College. And yeah, so they did a lot to make it seem like a real thing. And this was, again, in the early days of the internet, where you kind of just sort of believe things, and if it looked plausible, and all the things that you would expect of a website to look plausible, like it has photos, it has links to things, it has all of the things that we would be teaching you to pay attention and look for in like web literacy. In a web literacy context, this does all the things that it needs to do to try to convince you that this is true. Unfortunately, it's not true, or maybe, I guess, fortunately, it is not. It's not a real thing. But there's a lot of pretty interesting stuff. There's documents, there's books, interviews with historians, lots of things to build this out. There was one thing I remember seeing, but I couldn't find it today, and I just put it on Twitter to see if anybody can find it. Like, I know who the person is who made this website, so I might just ask him. But I feel like there was a Burkittsville town website that purported to be the official website of Burkittsville, Maryland, and it linked to this website and included it as like, here's the backstory of our local ghost or something like that. I can't find that now, and I mean the actual Burkittsville website now does have a lot about well, here it is. It does have a lot of things on it about the Blair Witch, not this one, but it's a basic, right, municipal kind of website. But yeah, this one, Burkittsville.com, this is kind of the unofficial website, and this has a lot of stuff about the Blair Witch Project as a film and as a phenomenon that took over their town for several years. But it's more about the tourism aspect here. But anyway, I think it was very good. And they did other things too, like the Sci-Fi Channel ran a documentary about the Blair Witch that was completely in character. Like, it was telling the story about this Blair Witch phenomenon and kind of laying the scene or setting the stage for the movie, but not calling itself an advertisement. It's an hour-long documentary called The Curse of the Blair Witch, and it interviews historians and local people in Maryland, and they are all talking about the Blair Witch. So when the movie came out, many people were convinced that it was a real thing and were genuinely freaked out by it and up in arms about it in some cases. So I don't know. It's an example of early kind of digital marketing or viral marketing, but also it relies on this belief structure that we were still developing for the web. So yeah.
There's another way, like, when I was like younger, I was looking up like, I guess, scary games.
Yeah.
I was an idiot. And I came across like the Midnight game.
Okay.
Midnight game, and it's actually a movie now, which kind of freaked me out because I was like,
Nice.
wait a minute, I know all this. But like, it's kind of another like form of like, oh, like play this game
Mm-hmm.
and tell us if you like survived or not, kind of thing.
Cool.
People being like,
Yeah.
I didn't hear it. Like,
So it is.
I played it, nothing happened, and then other people that like I played it, and there's bad things happening
Mm-hmm.
even afterwards.
Cool.
It like gives you like the directions and everything. It's called like Midnight Game. It's really
Yeah.
creepy.
I just Googled it here, and I see it.
And it's
Yeah.
I mean the movie freaks me out because like all of a sudden like I remember like as a kid like reading this, I'm like, how is this a movie?
Yeah.
But apparently like you need a candle and you need salt and you need to prick
Mm-hmm.
your finger.
Yeah.
And you like it's at midnight and you
Right.
knock on the door like 22 times, and until 3:33 you have to pretty much like keep away from like this dude who like pretty much like hunts you in your own room. in
Wow.
your own house. And you have to keep like the candle lit,
Mm-hmm.
and if it goes out you have 10 seconds to light it back, or you have to draw a circle of salt around you.
Yeah.
And the thing is like if you don't have that time,
Yeah.
he will pretty much like give you hallucinations
Uh-huh.
of like what your literally like worst fear or whatever.
Wow.
And so it's kind of like
Yeah. Like all those things I'm reading the Creepypasta wiki article about it. And all those things that you said are here. Like there's a lot of detail that you recalled from that. So that's great. So did you actually do it? Like prick your finger in the circle of salt and all that? Or,
not dumb.
okay. Right. Yeah. Why would you do this on purpose, right?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
would not do that.
Yeah.
But I just thought it was interesting because they had games,
Mm.
and then they had like like comments, and you have people like commenting on what they did, on the fact that they did do it.
Yeah.
And even if you look it up, like you have like Yahoo and other sites saying I did it,
Mhm.
and this is what happened.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's kind of like another form of like marketing, pretty much.
Sure, yeah. And like internet, like ghost storytelling. Like, so people, of course, like we trust people online even if we know not to, right? When we look at review sites, we know that Yelp is probably full of fake reviews, but we kind of are influenced by a 5-star review or a 1-star review. Same, I think, is probably true for that, where people say, I did this and it like burned my house down, or whatever the story is. When people tell these stories, we can be freaked out by them, even if we can apply a grain of salt and kind of understand that probably they might be telling a story. Just the more that there is, the more times we hear it, the more it seems plausible. Like maybe it's true. Maybe I should try it. Yeah, and these stories or these kind of games have been around. I mean, the Bloody Mary is the classic one, where you stand in the dark and look in the mirror and you say Bloody Mary or something. I don't know. I never did it, but you can imagine how that just kind of that scenario of being alone in the dark looking at a mirror could be pretty scary. And then you add this kind of mythology on it, and then it can develop into something even freakier. So, yeah, it's all storytelling, right? That's why it's so interesting. Okay, so one more, and actually, well, two more. But I don't have time to do the Slenderman. But do you all know Slenderman? Have you heard of? This was the origin of Slenderman, and I think there's movies, there's games, video games. Slenderman started off as a Photoshop challenge on Something Awful. Like I remember, I used to read this forum pretty regularly, somethingawful.com. They called it Photoshop Fridays, and there'd be like a challenge. Everybody would try to do something stupid with Photoshop, and this one was to try to create evidence of some paranormal activity. And so this was somebody's entry. That's Slenderman in the back. There's all these like worried-looking children in front, and then they sort of started building stories around that. And then there are different versions and different mythologies, but I mean, the basic mythology of Slenderman is that this was not an accident, that this person put it here, and now Slenderman is real and there's a problem, and you have to do something about it. So Slenderman is probably the most famous creepypasta. A couple others. So this found a camera in the woods one I think is really good because it's pretty subtle, and I think subtlety is really the art that the ones that are good are good at being subtle, and this one's a good one. I will put all these together in like an image or album or something to make it easier to access them, but basically, it's a camera found in the woods, and someone just loads up the photos on the SD card and discovers some unusual things if you look closely. So that's that one. The other one, I think I have time to show this video. This is a great one that it's not as famous, but I really liked it. This is a re-upload of it. This is not the original version of it. It's sometimes called the Pantry Ghost. I think I'll end here. I will just say that, just as another disclaimer, like, always keep in mind that it's much more plausible that someone has faked this than that this is evidence of what it claims to be. So bear that in mind. But this is one of my favorites. At night, we would close our pantry door. In the morning, it would be open. We decided to film the door at night and find out why. I can't believe what I captured on film. What you're about to see is real. Of course it is. Right. And if you can't hear the audio, the guy's just saying what he's doing. He's just saying, I'm watching my pantry door. Right. Yeah. Yeah. I love it. Okay. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I don't know. So he did a few other videos. There's another one where someone stands next to the pantry door, and when the ghost shows up, he like touches hands with the ghost. It's pretty spooky. Like I say, it's one of my. It's like early YouTube, like an early viral YouTube thing. So it goes back to like 2007. I think is a re-upload. There are several more videos that this person put together, and you can kind of see how they do it in a few of them. So it ultimately, I don't think is evidence of a ghost there. I will just say that I'm pretty sure it's fake. But you be the judge. Check it out and let me know what do you think. So let's see. Okay, so just looking at this, the couple of things. So there's, Harper's Ferry, West Virginia, I imagine is haunted. I'm actually going there next weekend, so I'll see. I'll let you know if I see anything. All right, cool. So I'm going to wrap up the stream. Thanks for watching if you're out there. And let me know your internet ghost story. If you know one that I should know about, I'd love to see it. I think these things are fascinating, especially the early internet stuff. So let me know what you know. Let me know what you've heard, and I'd love to see it. All right, so thanks for watching. If you have questions or you want to talk about your project, of course, I'd be happy to. I think I've given everyone here, I've given you all feedback. So hopefully those videos helped. Likewise online, I'm almost done. There's literally like 3 of you left. But if you would like to talk about your projects, let me know. I'll be happy to set up a conversation somehow. All right, cool. So I'm going to stop the stream here. Thanks for watching, and stay safe this weekend. Watch out for ghosts, I guess. Bye.